So welcome everybody to today's webinar on integrating digital skills into apprenticeships, which launches a new toolkit produced by the European Alliance for Apprenticeships. I'm Andrew McCoshen, and I'm really pleased to be your moderator for this morning. Of course, along with the green transition, digitalisation is one of the major challenges of our times. But it might be paradoxical that actually digitalisation has been around for quite some time, and we've seen sort of successive waves of digital technologies rolling through our economies and societies. But the latest wave involving artificial intelligence, immersive technologies, is promising something new. Of course, we've seen the promises of IT, many promises of IT before, but I think we're already seeing the changes. i.e. AI could have written this introduction for me. I promise it didn't. But it's also already bringing changes in other areas, as in, for example, predicting protein structures and designing new proteins, which is revolutionizing the fields of drug discovery and development. AI did write that last bit for me. So anyway, it's very timely to be thinking about digital skills and how they should and can be integrated into apprenticeships. In a moment, I'll give the floor to Anna Barbieri from the European Commission, who'll give us an overview of what's happening at EU level in this area and introduce the new toolkit. But before that, I'll just draw your attention to the housekeeping rules and run through the agenda. So your microphone and camera will be turned off throughout the session, but please do use the chat to leave comments and interact with other participants during the event. That's also the place where you can ask questions as we go through the session. The event will be recorded, just to let you know that, and if you have any technical issues, there is an address there you can contact us at, should you have any of those. Turning now to the agenda, as I just mentioned, Anna will be giving us an introduction, after which we'll have 2 rounds of discussions, which we've structured to reflect the structure of the toolkit itself. So discussion round 1 will be on the topics of addressing digital needs and building capacity for digital skills. And the second round of discussion would be designing programs and maximising benefits. And at the end of each of those discussion rounds, we'll have a short presentation to give you the sort of main outlines of what's in the toolkit to whet your appetite, so you can have a more detailed look at that at your leisure at a future point. We've assembled a wonderful team of speakers to discuss and shed light on these topics from their various perspectives, and we're really grateful for them giving their time to this meeting today, and I'll introduce them in a minute. And yeah, as I mentioned, if you do have any questions, please do ask them in the chat. So without further ado, I'd love to give the floor to Anna Barbieri. Anna is team leader in the unit for vocational education and training in DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion at the European Commission. And Anna's in charge of the team dealing with apprenticeships and Erasmus Plus for VET. And actually, Anna's worked in the VET field for more than 10 years. Working at high levels with the Advisory Committee on Vocational Training, for example, and also with various expert groups. So, Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Good morning, everybody. I'm actually very, very happy to be with you today. If you can bear with me for a few moments, I have 4 points that I would like to touch upon in this intervention. The first point is the European Alliance for Apprenticeships, which is actually the umbrella under which we organize this webinar today. Then my second point will be about the policies on digital skills at European level. And my third point will be about the funding opportunities for digital skills. And then my last point will be a few words about the toolkit that we will discuss during this webinar. So allow me to start by saying a few words about the European Alliance for Apprenticeships, the EAfA as we call it. The European Alliance for Apprenticeships is a very concrete tool to help stakeholders to solve the problems, the barriers that they face in their work on apprenticeships. In particular, the Alliance promotes the quality, the image, the offer of apprenticeships, and the learning mobility of apprentices. The Alliance is funded by the European Commission, by DG Employment, and it is a very successful initiative at political level with the support from all of the member states, from European social partners, and also from stakeholders from the labor market and from civil society. There are more than 470 members, training providers, local authorities, businesses, and other types of stakeholders from 41 countries. So this goes much beyond the European Union. The Alliance offers to its members opportunities for networking and for sharing knowledge, and the event like today is an example of that. My second point, as I said, concerns the policies linked to digital skills. Digital skills are crucial for the competitiveness of our economy and also for our society, and we work on these on various fronts. We are aiming by 2030 to have at least 80% of the European population with basic digital skills. And we need 20 million ICT specialists by 2030 in Europe. We are also aiming to a better gender balance in the ICT sector. Since 2020, the European Skills Agenda and the Digital Education Action Plan have undertaken several actions to promote upskilling and reskilling, including also boosting skills for the digital transition. For example, I would mention a flagship initiative of the Skills Agenda called the Pact for Skills, that support public and private organizations with upskilling and reskilling for the green and the digital transitions. I will ask my colleagues to put a link to this initiative in the chat in case you don't know it. Then there is DigComp, the digital competence framework that provides a common framework, a common understanding of digital skills, and can be used for various purposes. For example, for the development of policy initiatives, for curricula design, or for skills assessment. DigComp is being updated actually nearly on a regular basis to take account of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence. For example, in terms of defining digital learning outcomes in the context of AI. Or, for example, to respond to trends like the increasing remote working or tackling disinformation, as there are many skills linked to these trends. We are also looking at the potential of using artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies to support vocational education and training. And the toolkit that we present today will touch upon that as well. I go to my third point about the funding opportunities for digital skills, and also this is mentioned in the toolkit. The European Social Fund Plus is one of the main instruments for skills and training. There are 2 billion euro that have been programmed for supporting digital skills specifically under the ESF Plus. And of course, there are also more general measures under the ESF that involve to a certain extent also the development of digital skills. So the final amount, the final figures is much higher. Also, the Recovery and Resilience Facility, the RRF, has 23 billion dedicated to digital skills and education. And the last funding opportunity I would like to mention is Erasmus+, which supports quite strongly work on digital skills across all of its actions. One of the actions that I would like to mention in particular, because it is managed by our unit in DG Employment, is the initiative on the Centers of Vocational Excellence, the COVs. This initiative has a budget of 400 million in the period 2021-2027 under Erasmus+. These projects aim to create local skills ecosystems that go beyond the traditional training provision. And since 2021, we have 41 COVs projects ongoing, and many of them address or job-specific skills or broader digital skills. So as you can see, there are plenty of opportunities in terms of funding for digital skills. Now, my fourth and last point, going to the very heart of the webinar today. Most information that I've shared with you now can be found in the EAfA Toolkit on digital skills in apprenticeships. So don't be afraid if you missed some of the references that I was mentioning. This is the second toolkit developed by the European Alliance for Apprenticeships. Indeed, last year, around the same period, we have launched the first toolkit, which was focusing on the learning mobility of apprentices. My colleagues will put in the chat the page where you can find the EAfA toolkits. I'm not sure if the one that we present today is already there, but it should be shortly because there is a technical update going on in DG Employment today, so be patient on that. This toolkit that we develop under the European Alliance for Apprenticeships offer concrete guidance on specific topics that really respond to the needs of the EAfA stakeholders. For example, the EAfA Toolkit on digital skills in apprenticeships that we launched today focuses on digital needs of the organizations and on how to introduce and mainstream digital skills in existing apprenticeships programs. This toolkit wants to help both the VET providers and the companies to maximize the benefits and the opportunities that are offered by the digital transformation, but also to help them to overcome the obstacles that come with it, and also to promote mutual and peer learning. For example, the toolkit outlines some key steps and a lot of good examples that can inspire and support those who want to integrate digital skills in apprenticeships. Just a final word from my side. I would like to wish you an interesting exchange during the webinar and would like to thank the panelists that are participating today, Andrew McCoshan, the moderator, as well as our contractor Ecoris for their support. And then last but not least, I would like to thank my colleagues from the apprenticeships team in DG Employment, Tamas Varnai, Beatrice Biolcati and Chiara Ristuccia, who are here present today, and you will reply in the chat to your questions. Many thanks.
Thanks, Anna, very much for setting the scene so well for us. And questions have already come in on the chat, and responses have started to be made as well, which is impressive, especially when they concern statistics about apprenticeships, which are quite hard to come by in countries and at European level. So thank you very much, Anna. Now I'm delighted to turn to our first panel discussion. The aim of these discussions really is to hear from those directly involved about the challenges and opportunities they face, and those who have a sort of deep research knowledge of the field as well. So we brought together people from different organisations, key stakeholders from employers, vet providers, and importantly apprentices themselves, who will have different perspectives on how we should be identifying relevant digital skills at different levels, sectoral, organisational, on what we should be doing to make sure we have the right digital infrastructure in place. And last but by no means least, on how we can try to ensure equality of access for everyone to digital skills. That's so important, both economically and socially. This is also an opportunity to hear about and to share examples of good practices that will demonstrate how companies and vet providers have been integrating digital skills into apprenticeships. So to discuss these topics, I'm delighted to welcome our four panelists. Vlasis Korovilos is an expert in the Department for Vet and Skills at CEDEFOP, and Vlasis has worked extensively on apprenticeships, including CEDEFOP's European database on apprenticeship schemes, which I recommend to you as a very valuable resource, and has also taken part in many symposia and policy learning fora, and I guess is well known to many of you. I'm also delighted to welcome Emily Christ, who is Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of Mimbus, which is a company that works on integrating immersive digital solutions into VET. And she'll be sharing knowledge about how and which digital technologies can be introduced into apprenticeship programs to enhance learning. I'm also pleased to welcome Theodore Grassos, who is Secretary General of the European Association of Institutes for Vocational Training, EVBB, which is a network of more than 600 vet providers, schools, institutions, organisations and ministries from no less than 74 countries from across the globe. And Theodore himself has over 20 years experience and has been responsible for over 100 projects of various sizes at national and EU levels. And finally, Daniele Sabato, who works at the Organising Bureau of European School Student Unions, OBESU, and he's a project and policy officer with a background in philosophy and the sociology of digital technologies, so bringing a very interesting perspective there. And Daniele has contributed to various EU-funded projects and initiatives as an expert on digital rights. He's also coordinator of the European Apprentices Network, EAN, and his main advocacy portfolios include digital education and VET. So those are our four panelists, and thank you very much for coming and sharing your expertise and perspectives today. In terms of the questions to address, I guess the starting point, as always with these sort of topics, is about matching apprenticeship offers with digital skill needs. And first off, I would like to give the floor to Vlasis, because I know that CEDEFOP has done a lot of work in this area in relation to getting a better fit between training and digital skill needs, looking at that from a sectoral and occupational perspective in some detail. So Vlasis, perhaps you could start us off then on that question.
Yes, Andrew, thank you very much. I will start with something positive, by saying that digital skills, fortunately, are relatively more tangible and more specific than, for example, what are the skills needed for the green transition. So this is an initial point that helps us navigate through data. I will explain later how. Now, at the same time, there are also different types and levels of digital skills. So some of them are now considered as basic skills and are relevant across most occupations, if not all. But there are also some digital skills that are job specific and often more advanced ones, not exclusively in ICT-related jobs, but also at more traditional apprenticeship sectors that might be needing to work with automation and digital machinery, etc. So our analysis is that from online job advertisements and European surveys that we run is that the demand for digital skills keeps growing in both ICT-related and non-ICT-related occupations. And 2/3 of non-ICT roles now require digital skills. So the first challenge is for the labor market actors to capture what is the mix of basic, intermediary, advanced skills required in each occupation. And then to have this mix communicated to education actors, which then in that turn need to reflect on what this means in terms of the apprenticeship specialties that are offered, how they need to be updated. The second challenge, especially in this case of more advanced digital skills, is to keep up with changing technologies and even anticipate, if possible, future ones. And this is a difficult exercise for employers first, and then for vet providers to adapt. And we have noticed that this becomes an even more pressing concern for apprenticeship stakeholders, in particular because there are numerous examples of how apprenticeship does expand to occupations that were not previously offered through apprenticeship programs, but are becoming now a reality in apprenticeship. So occupations related to cybersecurity, to programming, to data analysis. So this is now an additional challenge, the pace of change in relation to skill needs emergence and identification. That would be in terms of challenges. There are several responses. I don't know if you'd like me to expand on this now or after we get other panelists' view.
I will come back to you, Vlasis, afterwards. Yeah, thank you very much for setting the scene on the sort of ubiquity of digital skills, you know, basic and also higher level. Perhaps I could turn to Theodore at this point and bring in the sort of vet provider perspective, because you know, it's an important question about how people involved in apprentices understand digital skill needs, how far they use you know, high level data, local knowledge and that type of thing. So maybe you could shed some light on that, Theodore.
Thank you very much for that, Andrew. I followed Vlasis and I fully agree that at the moment, keeping up with digital technologies is a nightmare, to be very honest. Now imagine students finishing school, getting ready for the first practical training, go to a company and actually the technologies that are being used there are irrelevant with the ones that they have in the past learned in the school. And this happens more frequently at the moment, unfortunately, because the pace of the change of the technologies is so huge right now. And unfortunately, the industry is not talking enough with the vet providers, and the vet providers are not talking enough with industry. At the same time, we do have the issue of upskilling and reskilling teachers and trainers, because we are asking them to teach about technologies that sometimes they're not even aware of. And at the same time, we have tutors that are supporting the students or the learners during their apprenticeships that most of the time are not, let's say, relevant to the technologies that right now are being used. Within this context, we believe that we should focus more on the learn how to learn skills, because we need to change and adapt so fast as learners, but even as employees, as employers. And within this context, we believe that this area is very important. But I would also like to straight out and to emphasize that we do also have an opportunity here. We have the opportunity to provide personalized support during the apprenticeship periods, and we are able to allow learners to get the most out of these practical learning schemes, while on the other hand, employers are able, with the use of the new technologies, to help a new entry to become more efficient and better trained, and then why not offer them also their first job.
Thanks very much, Theodore. Raising some interesting points there, which I know we'll probably pick up as we go through the discussion, like on personalised support, personalisation of learning through digital technologies, which I know is a topic. You've also kind of touched on there the vet provider position, and I guess one of the issues there is questions of sort of types of support needed to deal with the digital transition. And so maybe I could turn to Daniele at this point and to bring in the apprentices' perspective on what sort of support apprentices might actually benefit from in this regard.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Good morning to everyone. Yes, indeed, there isn't just what vet providers needs, what employers needs. Also, students and apprentices' needs and interests must be taken into account. So when we are talking about employers requiring apprentices with digital skills, then the challenge is for VT providers to develop curricula that can accommodate employers' digital demands, but at the same time accommodate apprentices' needs. In this case, the involvement of learners or learner representatives can act as a support, can bridge the gap between VET systems and employers, as in providing feedback on how well training matches real-world job requirements. However, as it has been mentioned before, labor market skills are often difficult to define and foresee, especially in the context of fast-pacing digitalization. So what we advocate for at the OBESO and through the European Apprentices Network is for VET systems to focus rather on transversal skills that give learners flexibility in an evolving digitalized labor market. And probably employers should have the responsibility to provide quality on-the-job training on specific skills as well, rather than leaving these responsibility only on the shoulders of education systems. Education systems have a broader purpose, that is to create quality educational opportunities for learners, developing critical and skilled students, and not solely produce workers. And often the needs of digitalization are exogenous, that is, the response to the interests of non-educational actors. And this might be the result of a not fully or meaningfully open, inclusive, participatory approach to the digital transition, to the digitalization of VT systems. So I have actually a question is, do we want a digitalization of VT systems just for the sake of digitalization? I think one challenge that is maybe an overarching one is for the VT sector to integrate digital skills in apprentices, but retaking ownership of this digital transition, so that this transition is not just a burden imposing new responsibilities on VT institutions and employers and apprentices, but for this transition to be an opportunity.
Yeah, it's a very good question, Daniele. Thank you very much for raising that. And I think you're also pointing at there this difference between using digital tools in vet provision for learning against digital skills in the labour market. And I think sometimes the two can be kind of muddled together when we're talking about digitalisation if we're not very careful to separate out what we're actually talking about. But I think this is a good point to turn to Emily, who I saw was nodding there and as you were talking. And I know you, Emily, you have an interesting perspective on this from as a sort of provider of some of the latest technologies in learning. So I'd like to give the floor to you at this point.
Yes, sure. So hello, everyone. Sorry for my voice. I hope you hear me properly. So yeah, we are providing innovative tools for the instructors and for the vet centers to help them improve the efficiency of their training. And we totally agree on the fact that it's not a matter of tool, it's a matter of why you need to innovate in your training. You don't necessarily have to purchase the latest disruptive tools for your training. It's not very interesting for your instructors or for your trainees. In our point of view, to make the digitalization efficient, you really need to involve all the stakeholders of the vet centers and make them understand why, what are their problems and how they could arrange them, how they can fix the problem. And then you offer them different solutions that they can implement into their training path, into their training to be more efficient. That's why we believe that it's very important to train them, have a capacity building and professional development for the instructors is very, very important as well. And we believe that the decision maker should consider this it's very important in our opinion.
Yes. So bringing everyone in and reflecting all their views in that, and I think Theodore, you mentioned teachers and trainers as part of that process as being key in there, and I know Vlasis, if I can bring you in on this issue of the support needed, in particular the role of teachers and trainers, which is obviously always central to this. I've written about it in many reports that I've written, and it's still there as a sort of nut to crack, really, in so many fields.
Yes, Andrew. You're right. This is quite central in this case as well. There is a, let's assume that we have identified the needs. Let's assume that we have identified a training solution, like a digital training solution, and we try to put this into everyday practice, either in a vet school or at the workplace. We do not always take into consideration what is the readiness, the availability, and the attitudes of teachers and trainers to work with such tools. And then sometimes this is taken for granted by, let's say, policymakers and stakeholders, and they do not realize the huge investment that this represents in terms of time, first of all. So investing in teachers and trainers' readiness and giving them sufficient time to get the grasp of new tools and get to understand how this improves their everyday teaching and training life, it is very essential in this process. And it is actually a big enabler of any change that we want to introduce in this direction. For example, there is early evidence that vet teachers are positive in relation to AI tools because they help them get rid of, let's say, some more mundane tasks and have more time to redesign their training and more inspiration, more resources to redesign the way they train and then how they can focus on the core teaching stuff. But this is not the case with all the digital technologies. Some might look very difficult to grasp, and they might have some preconceptions that let's say, make them reluctant. So there comes the role of leadership, either school leadership or leadership within a company that participates in apprenticeship. So it is the school director, it is the supervisor of a human resources department or a supervisor of a line manager that gives enough time and motivation to the teacher or the trainer to get acquainted with the new tools and help them become familiar and then help them understand at ease how they can use these tools in the teaching process.
Thanks, Vlasis. Can I return, Emily? Can I return to you on that question, because you're developing technologies used by teachers and trainers? What's the experience of Mimbus in that regard?
So Mimbus has been created in 2011, and at the beginning we only sold the simulators and just training the instructors on the use of the simulator, but not on the how to integrate, how to design a course with this kind of technology, how to run your course, how to organize your class. So it was just a matter of using the simulator. And we realized that 80% of the time, the instructors never used it because they didn't, it was too difficult for them to reorganize their course. The way they were teaching was working not perfectly, but it was okay. It was the way that they used to do. So they didn't understand why the director of the vet centers asked them to use this technology. And that's where we realized that it was very important to support them in designing their course and taking into account this new technology. And there, at the beginning, also they were quite frustrating because it can be expensive for them. Sometimes some of the vet centers that we are talking with don't have the budget to to purchase basic things, you know, like pens. Sometimes that we know vet center that don't have budget for these basic things. So they were like, okay, why do we have to purchase this thing? What the benefit that we can take from it? And when they are well supported, when they know all the benefit that they can have from this technologies, they understand better, they adopt this new resource, and it's let's say 90% of the time a success. So it's very, very important to not neglect this this training and this capacity building.
Yeah, indeed. Theodore, can I bring you in at this point as well on this topic of, and Blasis mentioned the role of the school management, not just the teachers and trainers, but of course there's quite a history in digitalization in VET of technologies coming in, and as Emily said, that they're not necessarily used to their full potential.
Yes, first of all, we need to understand that we have different levels of schools. So we do have vet schools that do have the capacity, but also the magnitude, the size that is needed in order to adopt early, so that they are early adopters of new technologies. And then we have the cases like Emily said, where actually the schools are very small or in very isolated areas or in poorer countries, not only in Europe, but also outside the European Union. So we need to understand that the adaptation process is different in any case. But I would just like to bring forward something that we discussed last week at ETF. If you bring the technology in the classroom, like let's say a smartboard, at the end of the day, even if you do not train the teachers and the trainers, they are going to be triggered and they are going at the end of the day to use it. So that we have the level, of course, where trainers are reluctant to changes, but on the other side, the new technology is so interesting and so triggering that if you put it in front of someone, at the end of the day, he will be triggered to push the button just to see what's going to happen. So in our opinion, yes, we have all these issues of the reluctancy, but on the other side, we would kindly advise everyone, just try it out. And at the end of the day, we believe that everyone will like it. And this will create a new situation among the trainers so that they are also willing to bring forward to the students and the learners this new digital skills. Thank you.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting points raised there about how technologies are used when they first come in. And Daniele, if I can give you the last word on this in this particular round of discussions, and maybe give you some for some of my own thinking on that, which is interesting when you talk to teachers, because on the one hand, you have this sort of narrative story as we've talked about, that technology comes in and what a teacher is going to do with it. On the other hand, you have a class full of young apprentices who might know more about the technology, but if you also talk to teachers, they'll say sometimes young people will know how to use certain parts of technology, social media and so on, but actually it's much more challenging for some apprentices to actually know how to use the technology for more advanced things. So that's just a sort of contextualized, really, question to you about sort of what the apprentice's view is.
Thank you very much, Andrew. This actually really taps into what I was trying to say before. I was particularly interested by what Theodore said. You put the technology in the classroom, and then eventually someone will try to push the button and see what happens. But just try it out. But do we want to digitalize education, VET systems, and apprenticeships just to try it out? Or do we want to have an educational approach to the digitalization of VET systems? So when you ask of course, we understand that digital skills for working, for learning are essential, and the labor market plays a vital role within the VET sector, but these risks undermining the educational value of VET systems. So when you talk about the so-called digital natives, well, of course, this is a bit of a false myth, if you want. We are used to using digital tools from a very young age, but for what? Not for working, not for learning, but for living. And that's where my point comes in. We know that digital skills are important for work-specific tasks, for educational tasks, but again, we do not want a digitalization just for implementing digital tools, just for the sake of digitalizing VET systems. Our apprentices require digital skills also for civic development, personal development, because digital tools eventually affect them also outside the educational environments. And I think, I mean, with Obeso, we strive for the whole school approach in this regard, involving students directly in the design process, in the beta testing, alpha testing, not so that digital tools can be implemented with a contextual appreciation of where am I putting this technology? Who are we catering for? Whose needs? And based on that, based on the involvement of all stakeholders in the design, preparation, testing of the technologies, then this can happen with the educational added value.
So we need to have a more systematic approach to this whole domain, and I guess that's where the something like the toolkit comes in, and so that's a very good link into the next part of today's session, which is to give the floor to my colleague Flavia from Ecoris, who will provide a presentation on what the toolkit has to offer on these kind of topics we've been talking about. And thank you all for the very interesting points raised. I'm sure we can return to some of them in the next round of discussion after Flavia's presentation. And just a reminder, do ask questions in the chat of our guests. Flavia.
Thank you,
if you're
Andrew.
ready, the floor is yours.
Yes, I'm ready as I can
Brilliant.
be. Good morning, everyone, from my side as well. My name is indeed Flavia. I work with Ecoris, and together with my colleagues, we support the European Commission through the apprentice support services. So we provide support for the European Alliance for Apprenticeships through different means, by organizing events such as this one, but also by developing knowledge sharing tools. So over the past few months, we've been doing quite a bit of work on developing this new EAfA Toolkit on digital skills in apprenticeship. So for the next few minutes, I will try and give you a bit of an overview of the toolkit, its content, its structure, and but also a bit more on the steps that we have outlined within the toolkit that refer a bit to the discussions that we've had, the very interesting discussions, I must say, that we've had this morning with the speakers. So just to give you a bit of an overview of the toolkit, although Anna this morning already gave you a brief snapshot. So the digital skills in apprenticeships toolkit includes, first and foremost, the first introductory section where we try and clarify a few key concepts when it comes to digitalization in apprenticeships, just to make sure that the users of the toolkit are all on the same page when it comes to certain key terms, digital skills, digital competencies, digital transformation, so that it's clear what we're talking about in the toolkit itself. Then we also try to provide hopefully helpful information on EU policies and funding instruments that can support you to develop digital skills in the context of education and training, many of which were also mentioned this morning by Anna, but of course you have more in-depth and detailed information in the toolkit. And then the bulk of the toolkit revolves around providing a step-by-step guidance, particularly towards companies and web providers to encourage them and support them to integrate digital skills into their apprenticeship offer. Of course, apprentices are a very important stakeholder group in all of this. So despite the fact that we don't have a toolkit specifically directed at them, obviously we try to integrate their needs and asks throughout the text of the toolkit. And aside from step-by-step guidance, we've also sprinkled around a few examples of initiatives and projects that hopefully can inspire the users of the toolkit to get new ideas or implement some similar actions in their own specific areas. And last but not least, we've also included a few checklists or self-assessment tools for toolkit users to assess their progress and in implementing the different steps that we have outlined and in introducing, of course, digital skills in apprenticeships. So the toolkit will be sent out to all the participants to the webinar. So rest assured that it will be in your mailboxes soon. But it can also be found on the EAfA website, and I believe that colleagues from the European Commission also posted a link earlier today, but we can obviously post it again in the chat so you can check it out in your own time. It's quite a bulky document, so what I'm saying today obviously is just scratches the surface, let's say, of the actual toolkit. So I would encourage you to really check out the content and the guidance provided. But just in terms of structure, the toolkit is divided into 3 main chapters that are supposed to sort of reflect the 3 main stages, if we want to call it like this, of introducing digital skills into apprenticeships. And under each chapter or stage, we outline specific individual steps to be taken. Of course, we understand that it's a fluid process and that it's not so strict or fixed, and each organization might have their own approach, but it's supposed to give you an indicative guidance of things to keep in mind when wanting to strengthen the digital angle when it comes to your apprenticeship offer, whether you're a web provider or a company. So the first stage or chapter revolves around planning and assessing digital skills needs. So it's about understanding what sort of digital skills you might want to introduce in your apprenticeship offer, and taking all the preparatory steps for that to be implemented. The second stage or chapter is around building internal capacity for digital skills. We've heard a lot from the speakers as well about the importance of making sure that teachers and trainers have those digital competences themselves. So that's the kind of focus of this second step. And then the third stage is around then in designing and implementing apprenticeship programs that do integrate digital skills and digital technologies and make the most out of the digital tools that are available and can support apprentices to acquire those digital skills and also recognize the development of those digital skills so that the profile of apprentices can be improved and their employability also can be strengthened within a labor market that, as we heard, is increasingly digitalized. So for this first presentation, I will focus on the first 2 stages, and then I will come in after the second round of panel discussions to focus on the last third stage that you see on the slide. So yeah, focusing on the first stage, what you see on the slide here are the 3 main sort of steps that we have included into our toolkit that sort of reflect also the discussions that our esteemed panelists were having just a moment ago. With the first step focusing on identifying the digital skills that we may want to introduce into our apprenticeship program. So assessing whether we want to focus on just basic digital skills or for more advanced digital skills that might require a bit more thinking perhaps, but also try and understand how the introduction of digital skills in apprenticeships fits with school curricula and education and training system, to make sure that the introduction of digital skills in apprenticeship is also conducive to achieving educational outcomes that are foreseen in education and training policies at the national, local, or regional level, depending on how the education system works in your respective country context. And at the same time, also try and see how the introduction of digital skills in apprenticeships can somehow address current and future labor market needs. So in the toolkit, we provide examples of existing research and tools that can be tapped into to try and get an understanding of what are the changing digital needs across sectors, or perhaps at the national level, so that perhaps can support you to identify the type of skills that you might want to introduce in your apprenticeship offer. Then the second step is to try and get an understanding of, in your own specific context, so in your own sector, your own company, your own regional area, what are the skills that you already have within your organization that you can teach through an apprenticeship offer. So either build on your own strengths or identifying gaps that you may want to address through apprenticeship. So build your own staff through apprenticeship programs, and then make sure that apprentices have a way to join your own team in the long run. So we provide some guidance in terms of carrying out these assessments through surveys or focus groups, or perhaps setting up a skills matrix to assess for each type of occupation within your company what are the skills, the digital skills needs that you need to address and can develop through apprenticeships. And then the last step here would be potentially building partnerships with other organizations that can support you in building digital skills expertise, or introducing those digital skills into your offer. So try and partnering with ICT centers, for example, or tech companies, or companies that are active in the edtech sector, that can somehow support you and complement your own expertise and capacity with more specific tools and knowledge on digital. Then the second stage, when it comes to introducing digital skills, as I said before, revolves around building your internal capacity for digital skills. So yeah, there was a lot of talk, I think, in the panel on the importance of making sure that teachers and trainers are on the same page when it comes to digital, and that they are supported also to develop their own competencies. So our first step here is to try and assess what are their needs, what is their level of knowledge, not just in terms of their own specific sector and their own specific topic, but also to what extent they know about digital skills and tools, and to what extent they know how to use those for learning purposes. So that can be done through different means. Again, we have examples in the toolkit of potentially, self-assessment tools that are out there that can be used or repurposed within your own sector or organization. And then on the basis of that assessment, obviously try and address those needs through providing capacity building as obviously a broader effort and a broader commitment at organizational level towards upskilling and reskilling, which aside from digitalization is of course a very important topic in the ever-changing labor market that we are all trying to navigate. Aside from obviously individual competences and skill sets, then there's a whole infrastructure element to also taking into account. So the idea here is that there's a step that's focused on reviewing your internal digital capacity, so making sure that you do have the tools and the equipment that are necessary to be able to support apprentices to develop the digital skills. And of course, the type of tools or equipment might be different depending on the types of your own approach to digital and the type of skills that you may want to develop. And as part of this step, we also make a point around equal access, so making sure that all apprentices, regardless of their age, but also their specific background have access to these tools and this equipment. But obviously all of this has a cost. So we've taken that into account as well. So the last step that you see on the screen is about accessing financial support for digital. So we have included examples of policies at the national level and types of subsidies that are available, but also more information on funding opportunities at the EU level. You see some funding programs mentioned on the screen, but in the toolkit you have more specific details on how these different EU funding initiatives can be tapped into for companies and web providers to have access to financial support, which I'm sure is very much needed to make digitalization happen, let's say in practice. So this is just an overview of the first two stages. As I said, much more details are included into the actual toolkit, and then I'll come back after the second round of panel discussion for the third and last stage or chapter of the toolkit. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Flavia. That was very clear, and I hope that's very useful to everybody. In the meantime, we've had some exchanges in the chat that I would draw people's attention to. Thank you, Daniele, for sharing that good practice example and drawing our attention to the EAN key priorities for quality apprenticeships. I would also say that, of course, what we're talking about today, we should be framed by the quality framework for apprenticeships at European level as well. We shouldn't forget about that. That should frame everything we do in apprenticeships, really. And Vlasis, thank you very much for responding to a comment there about using digital skills, I think more widely to teach technical skills, really. Again, that's that sort of issue I mentioned of being clear about what we're talking about when it comes to digitalization. So thank you very much. Our second panel discussion is on designing programs and maximizing their benefits. And in that regard, maybe I should give the floor first to Emily, as you're sort of at the we don't call it the chalk face anymore, do we? That sort of cutting edge, the laptop face, perhaps, of digitalization of education, really. And I know you've got some views on, I guess, the relationship between teaching and learning methods and technology, as well as the technology itself, which is something we haven't really touched on very much yet, but is really important when you're thinking about, as you say, Daniele, the purpose of why we're doing this all in teaching and learning. So Emily, can I give you the floor first to think about how we harness technology to deliver better apprenticeship programs in that sense?
Sure. So at Mimbus, we're providing immersive learning tools. So when we are talking about immersive learning tools, I'm talking about augmented reality, virtual reality. So there are technology that can simulate real-world environments and allow the apprentice to practice the skills in a virtual environment in a total safe way. This technology allows many benefits, and you can harness in your training in many different ways. One of the biggest benefit maybe would be that you can put your apprentice in a dangerous situation and make him practice things that you can't do in the real life. So when your trainee is trained in a simulator, then he will be better prepared for the real life, let's say, because he will face different situations that you can't in threat center put in place in real life. You can also maybe use it as a collaborative tool. And if you have you can put your training in the simulation in the virtual reality and let them practice the jobs in collaboration and see how it goes and how they can collaborate and make them improve their skills. And I think most importantly, the benefits of this kind of tool could be the skills assessment. When you're using new technology, you have data, and we know that data is very important. You collect the data, and the trainers can individualize his course. Individualizing a course is crucial, I think, for an instructor to be more efficient. And if you connect it to AI, it becomes very powerful to personalize your training, tailor your training programs according to the course, and the instructors become even more powerful in his job. He becomes an instructor, of course, but also a coach to support his trainees to grow and to improve their skills. So I think I covered many aspects. I hope it answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. That gives us very good insight into kind of what happens at the sort of the local level, if you like, within schools and colleges, and in apprenticeship workplaces as well. There's also questions about, I think, how we design programs, taking digitalization into account. And I think, Vlasis, if I could bring you in here, I know you've got some perspectives on and how this might be taken into account, sort of at the national level, if you like, with national programs and qualifications. And how do you introduce digital skills? Do you have modules that are introduced into qualifications? And that opens up a whole set of interesting areas for debate and discussion, I think.
Yes, Andrew. It is true that digitalization helps to a great extent to expand the range that apprentices reach, either through new programs that emerge and new sectors, as I said before, that are entirely new to apprenticeships in many countries, so ICT-related sectors. It also helps modernize other traditional sectors that might be using digital tools in the teaching process, or might be developing new digital skills that are required by the sector as the occupation, let's say, the content of the occupation changes. Another aspect is that it allows modularization. So you can have courses that are delivered online. You can have courses that are delivered in an asynchronous mode. And this might means more, especially for adult learners who have different limitations in terms of time of attending a course. But I also need to stress that not any attempt of digitalizing content really fits apprenticeships. So we do not need to think in terms of extremes to the other end, where you have all apprenticeship program as a collection of micro credentials. This is not an easy fit for apprenticeship in particular, because apprenticeship is not any upskilling or reskilling activity. It is something that should be leading to a formal qualification that is recognized and is rather full and complete for the person to be able to practice the profession in the future. So there are many ways where digitalization helps increase the provision, but we need to have some reflections also at the back of our head. Now, when it comes to designing the tool, so moving from, let's say, the qualification level to the actual designing a tool, we also need to consider that not all tools that are developed for education and training are actually suitable for apprenticeships, because sometimes in apprenticeships we have this extra role of the in-company trainer that might be missing, like technically missing from a tool, or there are considerations about how you can reproduce the overall feedback that a trainer and company trainer gives to the apprentice. So this master-apprentice relationship, how if it can be fully reproduced in the digital domain. It might work as part of a specific task or a part of a course, but there are concerns also evident in our work from the symposium with the OECD, for example, 2 years ago, and a recent publication of 2024 that raised concerns on whether you can fully transfer the apprentice experience in the digital domain. So for us, the role of teachers and trainers remains irreplaceable but in conveying the real benefits of having this relationship of apprentice and master. But this role changes. This role rapidly changes, where you have coach trainers and incumbent trainers and teachers becoming more like facilitators of knowledge rather than conveyors, of the full knowledge that is out there on digital skills.
Yeah, that's a very interesting set of points there about these more like fundamental changes that these technologies can actually bring in. And so, Theodore, it'd be good to get the vet provider perspective on this very fluid, potentially changing environment. And again, Vlas has mentioned the point about online apprenticeships going sort of wholly online and the benefits and disadvantages of that. So, please.
I agree. First of all, trainings are not only conducted in class, they are also conducted on the field. And when it comes to apprenticeship, it is at work. So imagine trainings of a welder, of a nurse, of a doctor. Or if I would close my eyes and think that I'm at a shipyard, responsible for the end-of-life process of a ship, there I have to deal with asbestos, removing asbestos and other hazardous materials. Now, imagine how fatal a mistake here can be. And there are cases where the companies do not allow learners, students during their apprenticeship to touch the very expensive material and equipment that they have there, just because a mistake could cost millions of euros. And on the other hand, you do have geographically isolated areas. For example, in Greece, we do have these 1,200 islands that some of them are inhabited. How are we going to deliver equal opportunities for training and apprenticeships if you are dealing with such a diverse environment? So in some cases, work-based learning and work-based learning experiences can be dealt and delivered online. And I agree fully with Blasis. This cannot be the case for everything, and it's not one thing that can fit for everything. But we can start using VR, using gamification in order to avoid exposing learners, students, apprentices to dangerous situations. And whatever we will tell and discuss at the end of the day, my opinion and our opinion at EVBB is that technologies are good, but we should never forget that training should and never stop be delivered by human beings, because it is the human touch between the trainer and the learner that actually helps both of them to enhance and to acquire these new skills that we are actually discussing about. So thank you very much for allowing me to provide also our view on that.
Yeah, thanks, Theodore. Very timely reminder of the importance of all that, and generally of the work experience for lots of skills that people learn in workplaces that aren't actually assessed as part of qualifications and examinations. But that's kind of the whole point of an apprenticeship, isn't it, really? Daniele, would you like to give your input into this from the apprentice perspective, and perhaps we could broaden this out to look at maybe the opportunities and also the challenges involved in these sort of issues we're talking about, whether that's local level in the classroom, or these national topics about digital skills modules, micro credentials, which we hear lots of talk about.
Yes, absolutely. First, I would like to say that we completely echo what Theodore just said about digital tools not being a substitute for traditional methods and tools and skills, but running parallel to them and being complementary. Of course, there are many ways in which these technologies can be harnessed to deliver better apprenticeship programs. Like as we have heard, tech-enabled curriculum planning could enable personalized learning experiences, AI systems analyzing apprentices' progress, strengths, weaknesses to create tailored learning paths. Tech-enabled learning practices could foster inclusivity, catering for students with special education needs. And this is the case, for example, for VR-based learning. A good practice example actually on this is a project funded by Erasmus Plus called My Virtual World. And it aims to improve educators and trainers' skills in using 3D technology and helping employers adopt better practices for the inclusion of employees on the autistic spectrum. And then, of course, augmented reality could provide on-the-job real-time support to apprentices, reducing reliance on constant supervision. Yet again, I would like to make just two counterpoints. First, for apprentices to actually benefit from these technologies, there should always be policies at the European and national level, as well as guardrails, codes of conduct put in place, as well as continuous risk assessments, awareness raising initiatives to prevent or mitigate the risks that almost always come with these technologies. And these can be exacerbating forms of social exclusion, including cyberbullying, the negative impact that some of these tools may have on traditional skills, like over-reliance on AI based outputs and the impact it has on critical thinking, disinformation. And if we want to use AI to analyze apprentices and maybe predict what they could do, well, then we have also the issue of mass surveillance. The second point, I think it's more of a question. There are many ways to harness this technology, but for whom? And again, our apprentices do not need digital tools for the sake of digitalizing education or digitalized jobs, or not only that. To our apprentices, better apprenticeship programs doesn't mean just sci-fi education. It means continuous support and engagement before, during, and after their apprenticeship, from mentoring to evaluation to official recognition of digital skills objectives. It means catering for digital inclusivity. It means introducing digital tools and skills to extend their digital readiness beyond the digital market, beyond the digitalized education, but also to include the digital preparedness for their digital lives, well-being, citizenship. Again, technology is very powerful, but it should not replace human mentorship, and it should not come at the expenses of neither teachers, nor trainers, nor apprentices' well-being. And that's why OBESO and the European Apprentices Network always advocate for the right to disconnect. And yeah, I think that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Daniele, for raising not just the sort of challenges and opportunities, but offering some of the potential solutions for those things as well. We've got a very interesting question in the chat about whether there's appropriate space for parents to help. I guess they're part of the issue is where the parents kind of get left behind in the digitalization aspect of education and training. So I'm wondering who might want to pick that up amongst our speakers. Theodore, is that something that you might have been thinking about at that provider level?
Always EPA gives very straightforward questions that come to the point, and it is an ecosystem. I agree to that, and parents should be part of the discussion in two levels. The first level is that they should participate in the upskilling and reskilling process so that they are not left behind. And on the other side, what we usually feel is that, especially in some societies, parents are guiding their children through what they should learn, not allowing them to have the freedom of choice. So in this sense, we believe that parents should be part of the equation, both in the upskilling and reskilling also of themselves process, but also allowing the children who know better the new technologies than us, their children, to be able to choose what is that interests them, and become part of this new world that unfortunately we are too old and will not live in its fullest dimension. So this would be my answer to that.
Yeah, and I suppose it's also we should also remember the huge socioeconomic differences that exist as well in terms of digital skills access and so on and so forth. We have a few minutes left, so maybe I could just get some last reflections from Emily and Vlasis on sort of what you see as like the main 2 or 3 challenges that you see. Emily, maybe from your perspective as a sort of company perspective first.
Yes. Sorry. First, I wanted to say that I totally agree with Daniele and Theodore on the fact that technology will never replace the instructor. It's not the objective of these tools. It's they are educational tools, really created for the trainers, and it's very important for them to understand how to use it. I totally agree with that. And also, it's a tool to help the trainees to practice even more than they used to do before new technologies, just to multiply the time of practice. And regarding the challenges, again, the training of the instructors is very important. I just wanted to stress this out because I think it's very important. There's also this digital divide with internet connectivity, which can be a problem for vet centers. We are providing these tools in Africa, for instance, and in some areas, it's very difficult for them to have electricity and all that thing. So we need to find solution for this training center who that are facing this kind of issue to benefit from this technology. Yeah, I think it's something very important that we have to take into account.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks very much, Emily. And Vlasis, if I give you the last reflections before giving the floor to Flavia, who will just give us the final insights into the toolkit.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Yes, I would say that some the challenges are related to the limitations that a specific technology might come with. For example, when it comes to virtual reality or augmented reality, there are time limitations. You cannot be using the technology for a long time. There are issues of nausea, of dizziness, of usage. So these are, let's say, in a way inherent to the technologies that exist now, but might be improving as technologies also develop further. But this is not the most important thing. One thing is the startup costs that are related to making these technologies available across all apprenticeship programs. So going from one-off projects, ESF funded, for example, and making this a reality across all schools and or most companies participating in apprenticeship, this is a significant cost, both in terms of money, but also in terms of time of teachers and trainers, as we have discussed earlier. And then the main, for me, the main limitation comes from the motivation of actors to move from the traditional ways to the digital ones. And I would say that in both these last challenges, one reply is partnerships between actors, partnership between companies, groups of companies, schools, that would help both address the readiness and the motivation, also the capacity and the costs. But I didn't want to end up with only the challenges, because I also want to reiterate that there are many benefits that we see also from our work, from the papers that we have collected, the analysis that we have run, in terms of engagement, in terms of customization, in terms of opening the access of apprenticeship to more people through digitalization of apprenticeship. So I think these costs and these challenges are worth being addressed, being approached, being tackled, so that we get to reap the benefits, the great benefits that are out there. So thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Vlasis. Yes, for ending on a positive note about opportunities. So thanks to everybody, all our panelists, for contributing, and thank you for those people who've asked questions in the chat. It's been a really interesting and stimulating discussion. I will now give the floor to Flavia, who will take us through the final, the third section of the toolkit, if you like. So just wait for the slides to come up.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Just waiting for the slides myself. Perfect. So hello again. Very interesting to hear this this second half of the discussion. I think the speakers also picked up on some of the elements that we discussed earlier in terms of the different steps and the importance of partnerships and taking into account the perspective of teachers and trainers. But yes, indeed, just to give you a quick overview of the last big chapter or stage, let's say, that I was mentioning before, again, with the understanding that it's a fluid process, that it's not so much a succession of steps, a fixed section of steps, but it's adaptable, obviously, to your needs and experience. This last stage focuses more on designing and implementing apprenticeship programs that do integrate digital skills, and as you can see again on the screen, we have outlined a few steps as guidance, with more detail included into the actual toolkit. And again, I think colleagues have reposted the link in the chat, so you can check that out in your own time. But indeed, the first step here is around identifying then a specific, once you build, you have an understanding of the digital skills knowledge that you have in your organization, and gaps that there might be, and the infrastructure that you have at your disposal. Then it's about choosing the specific tools and technologies to be integrated into your offer. But also, as we were hearing from the speaker, and sort of balancing out the opportunities that are provided by some of these technologies with some of the risks of using them. There's a lot of talk about AI, as Andrew was rightfully pointing out, but there's also risks associated with it. There's considerations to be made around data, for example, that is being gathered on learners as well, and how that data is being used. So there are there's a balancing act to be considered when introducing these more complex tools in apprenticeships. But also there's value to be acknowledged when it comes to more informal opportunities to develop digital skills. There's a lot that we all do in our day-to-day work that is helping us to develop digital skills, and we might not realizing it. Even just this webinar and using Teams to exchange, it's in itself a tool to develop digital skills, and it might be a very simple entryway also for apprentices to start dipping their toes into the digital world, depending on what the end goal is. And talking about end goals, then another key step here is about introducing digital skills in learning agreements. So learning agreements are obviously a key element when setting up apprenticeships. So the idea here is to include specific elements on digital skills and mention digital skills in the context of achieving learning outcomes through the apprenticeship program. and discussing also those goals and those digital and how digital skills play into this with the apprentices themselves, so that learning agreements and learning pathways are tailored also to their own digital skills needs. And as part of this process, also monitoring how our apprentices are doing in developing their digital skills throughout their apprenticeship. And then, of course, it's about designing learning activities based on digital skills needs and the digital skills goals that have been agreed in terms of the learning agreements that, as I was saying before, bridge between curricular requirements, labor market needs, and the specific individual needs of each single apprentice. And then at the end of the apprenticeship programs, then try and find ways to capture and recognize digital skills that have been acquired through organizing specific assessments that maybe focus or integrate digital skills, and supporting apprentices also to showcase what sort of digital skills they have acquired in their profile, so that they, once they enter the labor market, they can actually show off the many things that they've learned when it comes to digitalization and digital competences, so that their profile is more palatable and more effective in terms of achieving and getting more opportunities in the labor market. So yeah, this is just to complete the third step. But as I said, I encourage you to check out the actual toolkit for more details and guidance. But for now, thank you so much from my side.
Thank you, Flavia, for rounding us off with that presentation. It's been very useful. So just remains for me in the last few minutes to thank our panelists sincerely again for what was a very interesting discussion. I have the feeling that we just scratched the surface a little bit of what is a vast topic about. Well, it's about changes within apprenticeships, isn't it? And hopefully the toolbox, the toolkit, can go some way to helping people on this sort of new journey, if you like, into digital skills and digitalization within apprenticeships themselves. The other thing to say at the end is that we have a QR code on the next slide, which really is related to sharing your feedback, because we always like to hear what you think of these events. So please do go and complete our short questionnaire. Thank you very much to everybody for attending, all our participants, and for what developed into quite an active set of exchanges in the chat. So I think I'm bringing us in a couple of minutes early, but that'll give us all a bit of extra time for lunch or coffee, depending upon where we are in the world. So thanks again to our panelists, and look forward to seeing you at the next event. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.